All right, everyone, welcome to Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. Today we are live here on Facebook and on Zoom with Barbie Van Cott, who has just recently published her book, and I'm so excited to share her story with you. I've been getting to know her, and she is a beautiful soul with a beautiful story to tell for us all. So first, Barbie, will you tell us about yourself and what you do or what you've been doing?
Okay, I'm Barbie Van Cott. My maiden name is Lavick. I am a 96% Eastern European Jew, according to my DNA. And my ancestors come from Russia, Romania, Hungary, and Poland. The part of Russia that they come from is actually now Ukraine. And I am super excited to share with you my journey. I was born and raised in California. I was born in Hollywood. And when I was born, I'm very petite. And when I came out, the doctor said she'll never reach 5 feet. But I did exactly. And I also, my mother said she's perfect, but I can tell she has a mind of her own, and I do, and I did then. And I was a kid who pondered everything. I was raised Jewish. I received a Hebrew name. I went to the synagogue, religious school every Saturday morning from kindergarten through high school. I totally was immersed in Judaism, and it was a part of my life. I wasn't really ever looking for another religion. I just had lots of questions, and I pondered all kinds of things. And I wondered, is there a plan, a master plan? Is there life after death? Are we born again to just die? Why is there prejudice? Where did we come from? I had all these questions, and I'd ask kids on the playground, and they thought I was weird in elementary school because I had all these deep questions and nobody can answer them. So I play handball and ask questions and stuff. And I just was different. And so in the 5th grade, since there may not be a perfect purpose to life, I wrote in my notebook, my purpose to make the world a kinder, gentler place. And so I did as many service projects as I possibly could. And I helped people and got involved that way. And sometimes I did crazy things, like marching in a parade for equal rights for Blacks when I was 13 in the night in a park. And I was very bold and very, I thought love conquers all, I can do all things. But I was very different than my mother, and we couldn't relate. And so it was a struggle in that way. But when I finished junior high, I won Miss Madison for all the service projects and the good things I did. And then my mother told me she was pregnant and having a baby, so we moved. And I went to a brand new fast high school. And that was so hard. I was called geek to the core because I had leadership ability. They called me captain of the geek squad. I sat with the losers at lunch. It was so hard. The populars would throw fruit at me. They'd block me in the hallway. The kids were mean to me. All of that helped build my character, though, to be inclusive rather than exclusive. It wasn't easy at all. And I just,
Yeah, sorry.
it wasn't easy at all. So let me just throw this in the hallway.
You're good. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Hey, Dennis. Dennis. Dennis, your phone is ringing. Okay, my husband's phone was ringing. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
I'm so sorry. So,
No.
okay. So in high school, I just was such a loser and I hated being on the top of the loser list. And to give you an example, I didn't date till I was a senior in high school. So I went up to a boy that I thought was cute. And I thought, I need to grow up. I need to do something. So I said, "Hi, you're in my math class. Have you noticed me? I've noticed you." And he said, "Like I'd ever notice you, freakazoid."
Oh,
And then, yeah, it was so hard. And then
oh,
one thing they did in my high school is that they go like this on your shoulder, and that meant you're a speck of dust. Or they
right.
throw a penny at your feet and say chop, cut
Mm,
low, and those type of things did. So in my senior year of high school, I decided that I was going to be popular. So popular, and I dressed in like they did, and I talked like they did, and I totally imitated. But I never got accepted because I was still who I was. And it wasn't till college that I blossomed and I totally had this wonderful experience with kids and friendships. And I even made it to the top sorority. But it wasn't, I had to bury myself of who I really was. I had all these burning questions and ponderings. And I dated a Christian boy and broke up with him because he wasn't Jewish. And I was just very confused. And then finally, when I was 20, I met this Jewish boy that wanted to marry me. And I just didn't feel right about it. There was something missing. And so I, for the first time in my life, had a personal prayer at 20. Jews pray, but it's memorized prayers, Hebrew prayers. And I said, God is, his name was Ron Silver. Is Ron Silver my destiny? Am I supposed to marry Ron Silver? If not, please intervene. And it was New Year's Eve. I was supposed to get my ring. There was no knock on the door, no jingle of the telephone. He was a complete no-show, and he was very reliable. So I took that as an answer to prayer.
mhm.
And 3 days later, I heard this inner voice that said, if you go to Hawaii, all your dreams will come true. I had no idea what that meant. None.
Okay.
So I said to my parents, I'm going to Hawaii. All my dreams will come true. And they go, what are you going to do there? I don't know. Who
What
you
better place to
gonna
just go?
I don't know. So they said, well, you figure that out. So I took a tennis class and I had a gym locker partner who I just didn't even know. We were in the back of a line together and you had to share a locker. And so I thought, here I get this prompting. I don't believe in the Holy Ghost because I don't even know what it is.
Right.
But I knew it came from God. I knew it came from God.
Mhm.
So I had that class and it was almost the end of the semester. And she had PE a different period than I did in college. And I heard her tell somebody she was going to Hawaii. So I perked right up and I said, you're going to Hawaii? And she said, yes. And I said, who are you going with? She said, I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. And I said, why are you going to Hawaii? She said, I know this sounds crazy, but I feel prompted to go. And I said, it doesn't sound crazy at all. And miracles, we went to Hawaii together. And I passed her off as my good friend Janice to my parents, even though she was a complete stranger. This is my really good friend, Janice.
We've been besties forever.
I said, she's my bestie. I
Yeah.
told her lying. But she went and she got on a plane and She got a job and got off at the wrong bus stop the same time as this other girl who was LDS. And they were going to the same place and ended up going to the police station to get a clearance for a job. And she mentioned she needed a roommate, and they moved in, and they were 3 Mormon girls and my friend Janice. And then I came 3 days later, and my life changed forever. I learned all about the gospel. I learned what true friendship is, love, and as far as friendship and love and all the principles of the gospel. It was the neatest summer ever. But I'm very quirky and I'm very naive. And my book is like, I had a friend laugh and laugh today that called me, that knew me from college on, and he was reading after I graduated high school. He said, I could so relate to your book. He was from the same area. He said, it's so you. It's a super fun read. I mean, it's a really fun read. It's very real. I use the words and how I talk then. And it's even reading it now myself, it's just quite entertaining. Everybody that's read it has said that it's it's very miraculous. I mean, it shows how God plays a hand in each of our lives. And we just have to look and we have to move forward with faith. And a few times I had to put myself in complete submission to the Lord to have my prayers answered. But that's okay, because that's when they are answered, is when we put ourselves in the hands of the Lord.
It's very true. It's very true. It is amazing how there were no coincidences in anything that you just described there. The Lord was like setting you in certain places, certain times. And I love that spirit of Christ, that light of Christ. You recognized it when you felt it and heard it, even when you
Did.
didn't know what to call it. You just, you
Right, right. And I have things about my childhood, like I wasn't very talented in the arts, and I kind of make fun of myself. I mean, I keep it real, and it's laughable. It's really laughable. And I found out what my talent was. I took art, I took singing, I took dancing, but we were at a baseball game and the bases were loaded, and Sandy Koufax was pitching, and he walked a player and the bases were loaded and everybody was going boo. And I stood up on the bleachers and I said, can't you see he's doing the best he can? And my dad said, that's Barbie's talent. She has a heart.
think that's the best talent anyone can
Yeah.
have. I love all that service you were doing. What were some of the projects that you were doing at that time? I mean, what were some examples of the service projects that you would find for yourself to do and get involved
Well,
in?
I was in junior high. Just a second.
You're fine. Yes, I get
I
those too.
was in junior high and they told us to read a book that would touch our lives and change our lives. I'm sorry when I did that with my throat.
You're good. I get tickles all the time too, so I get it.
Okay. We had to have a book report, something that would touch our lives. And so I got Helen Keller's book on being blind and what it was like. And I read several of her books.
Mhm.
And I was so deeply touched that I ended up, I had an older brother and my mother didn't even know. And he drive me to the Foundation of the Blind. And I would help teach them Braille and read them stories. And then in the 6th grade, this new girl moved into our elementary school and she was from Europe and she didn't know anything. And so I totally helped her adapt to her new surroundings. And I had the most incredible experience because there was somebody having in the party, having a birthday party, and everybody was invited. And she was poor and her clothes were tattered. And she had a hard time adapting to this area without having any money and being new and just learning a new language. So we were at the birthday party and my mother bought my gift, my present. And all the girls came dressed so nice. And when we were kids, we wore dresses to birthday parties. I know that sounds weird, but it does. She came in a tattered dress with a hole in the sleeve. And she had it, and her gift was in a brown paper sack with a rumpled brown paper sack with the top twisted. And all the presents were opened, and hers was the last one sitting on the table. And it sat alone. And she just sat there. And then Marcia, the girl who had the party, opened the gift. And inside were broken crayons and a half-used coloring book. And all the kids were laughing. And I stood up on my chair and I said, "This is the best gift of all because she gave of herself. She will no longer be able to use those crayons and coloring books. So it's a sacrifice for her to give that." And I said, hers is the best gift of all because she gave of herself. And it was then that was a stepping stone for me to realize that the Savior's gift stood alone and only he could give it. And he gave up his life for us. So I put things in the book that compare that and lead me to the gospel of Jesus Christ and to the Savior. And I have a lot about Judaism and what the religion means and how they celebrate. And in the book are recipes like matzo ball soup
Oh, yeah.
and all kinds of Passover dishes that my grandparents made that are traditional. And it's just, like the Passover, every year the Jews wait for Elijah's return. And that's part of the Passover is the promise of the return of Elijah.
Mhm.
And in 1834, Elijah came to Joseph Smith on the Passover and he restored the keys. And I learned about that in Hawaii by my roommates that it was on the Passover. So if you read, you'll understand Judaism. It'll help you understand because I have scriptures in there of the holidays besides my story and where the Jews get the scriptures from the Old Testament for what they do, and then how it's been fulfilled through the gospel of Jesus Christ.
That is beautiful. That's part of your story too, because you found that restoration and that fulfillment as you went.
Yes.
Beautiful parallel.
So I'm a deep thinker. I'm funny and quirky, but I'm also extremely sensitive and naive. And I have in there all my dating, and I have an example of 4 of the boys I dated, and where my parents gave me a serious talk about the birds and the bees, and I had that talk in there where they say we're old-fashioned. We believe in that it's okay for boys, but not for girls. So I said in there what I said. So who do they do it with? Loose girls, my dad said, not good
Oh,
girls
God.
like you. So I'm really honest, and
Mhm.
it is quite comical.
Mhm. I love that you're honest and real because it's hard to be vulnerable and it's hard to put yourselves out there. We were talking before this, but would you share what led you to share this story? I mean, you've got very sensitive stories, you've got your life. What prompted you to have to tell this story, to share this with the world?
Well, like my husband said, I'm very brave because I have very personal things that some people would just keep on their wraps. But I've been prompted to write the book to help people come unto Christ. And in the beginning of my book, I have my dad's story as a opening of the book. And my dad shared this to me after I had 6 kids, just had my last baby. And he told me when he was a kid, he was on the playground. And this is a sacred story, and it's in the introduction. He was on the playground in Duluth, Minnesota, and he snuck out, and it was a cold, wintry day. But the snow had lit up. So he went on the slides and he went on the swings. And then he got hungry. So he thought, my mother's going to worry, so I better run home. So he ran through an abandoned snowy field and his foot got caught in a rock. And he couldn't loosen it. And there was no one around. And he said, God, am I going to die here? Will you save me? Can you help me? And a man appeared out of nowhere and just came and loosened his foot out of the snow and said, you will have a great posterity. And then he looked at me and he said, you are my posterity. And so that was so meaningful to me because it shows that from beyond the veil, there are people that can help us. And I've done a lot of temple work for my family. And I have 2 brothers, one never married, so he won't have any posterity. The other married, but he doesn't have any children. I am the posterity. And I want people to come into Christ and be converted. And I said, if something's holding you back on my intro, overcome it and drink of his living water. I have. Life can be tough. And there's people out there that think, oh, God doesn't love me because I've had hard times. But he does. And you have to look for the good. And I've been prompted and led to write this book in so many different ways. And I know the Lord speaks to us through the Holy Ghost. He genuinely cares for each and every one of us. You have to put yourself in complete submission and pray about it. And you have to look for the good and be led. And I know the more service you give, the more the more blessings you can receive by giving of yourself. And I'm hoping that people that are trying to be something they're not can read this and realize that it's okay to be yourself. And there's people that will love and accept you. And those that don't, you just move on and you pray for them. I've been a seminary teacher, release time seminary teacher for 11 years at Mountain View High School in Mesa, Arizona. I went on a mission with my husband to Florida, and it was a proselyting mission. Loved it. It was so neat. I have published an article in the Ensign magazine, and I currently write a monthly article for the Beehive magazine in Mesa, well, in Arizona. It's a LDS publication, and it's things that happen in Arizona.
Wow. So you just felt the prompting to share, bring all this to us.
I had a fruit business too and it was in Mesa, but people from all over Arizona came. And it started as a ward calling. It really did. And I was in
Really?
charge. Was in charge of getting people to work at the cannery and to have one thing a month that they could buy for food storage. So I did wheat and powdered milk and honey and all of that, and chocolate from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And then there was a farmer that had an apple orchard, so I brought in like 20 boxes of apples. And the fruit just kind of stuck long after I was released. The farmer didn't want me to quit. And so I went from a handful of people to 5,000 people.
Oh my goodness gracious.
But I know, I don't do it anymore. I sold the business. So, yeah,
Wow, you probably met a lot of people that way.
I have, and they're amazing people. And I'm so grateful.
And stories from them to share as well. That is so beautiful that you just followed the Lord's spirit through all this and done it. What was it like to try and write your story down? What was it difficult? Was it hard? What came to you? What was that like for you to try to write?
It took me, in all honesty, I started it 16 years ago. And anybody that knows me, I'm a little bit ADD in that I jump from project to project, thing to thing. My mind's racing. It's always thinking of this and that. And so I'd write a little and then I'd go do something else. And then a few days would go by and I'd write a little and do something else. And I'd put it off and put it off. But then I would wake up in the night in dreams, and the words would come to me what to write and what to change and what to add and what not. And then I realized that, like I said, this isn't my book, it's my story, but it's the Lord's book. And I don't know who it's going to reach or who it's going to touch. It's been out a little less than 2 weeks. And I've sold 62 copies so far, which isn't a lot.
It's
But
more than mine, so you're doing good.
well, but my grandson lived with us and he did the front and back cover. And we worked on it together until it was perfect. And then he did the whole manuscript formatting himself. And the words are there, the story's there, but the formatting is off. And I have a dear friend that read the book and was in my writing group and absolutely loves my story. And she read it and she called me and she said, Barbie, I love the story. I love the book, but the formatting is off. Can I do the formatting for you as a gift? And she's a publisher, a published author and a publisher. And so she redid the formatting. And then she told me to go through the whole book and make sure everything is just the way I want it. And so I'm almost done doing that and I'm going to resubmit it. And it takes 72 hours for Amazon to do the resubmitting. So in 72 hours, it will have the new format. And if the format is basically the paragraphing and the line, how it's written, not the words, but how it's organized. And so I'm working on that. And I realized that I use the word so a lot. So this, so that. So I took some of the so's out and there's a couple quotation marks that were missing and a few commas that I took out, a few that I added. So that type of stuff. But the meat is there.
Important part, yeah.
Yeah.
I
But
love that
this,
your friend is giving you that gift.
I know she is so sweet. She is so sweet. I love her.
There's
And
a good group of authors down there by you. There are several of them in my author group are also down there. My editor actually lives down there in that area too. So yeah, that's crazy. There's a
I,
bunch of us.
I love what they say, even though it's hot.
Yeah, it is quite warm. It is there. So I always ask this just because I want to know, as an English teacher and a reader myself, what are the things you liked to read and what inspired you when you were growing up or currently? What are the things that you love to read and that you're inspired by?
I love all of Richard Paul Evans' books. I read the scriptures. I like a lot of self-help books. I'm not into fantasy or any violence. My husband could tell you that he loves space, like space movies or books, and he loves cowboy books. I'm not into that either.
Yeah. He likes the good old Louis L'Amours then and stuff, right?
That's it. Exactly. Louis L'Amour. Yeah.
Yeah. I try to have those on my shelf because I live in an area where that's it, but even those kids aren't into those anymore. They're all into stuff. Okay, so you're a Richard Paul Evans fan and stuff too. So I'm just gonna ask if you have a favorite of his, because he's written such a wide variety and so many kind
Has, and they're downstairs in the basement.
of
I can't remember
You're fine. You're fine.
which one. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just curious because say there's so many and I love
There's books that can change your life,
oh yeah.
like the 5 love languages.
Hmm.
That's can change your life. It can help you to understand things. There, people have already written me or called or text, or some people have actually written how they felt about the book on Amazon.
Hmm.
And some of my experiences have helped people already. And that's my goal. That's my hope and dream.
And isn't that the hope of most authors, especially when we're sharing our personal stories, i-
Mhm.
is that we reach someone and to know that we've helped someone just is like, okay, this is worth it. All this pain
Mhm.
and anguish going through our stories. I know you said that your story is comedy and light and things like this, but you also mentioned to me earlier that you're honest and raw about some of those harder times too. And you talked a little bit about how kids made fun of you and things like this. What other things that are maybe harder for people to read in this book that, maybe will be
Well,
more difficult for us?
my home life was far from perfect. And I had a mother that couldn't relate to me. And in looking back, in retrospect, now that I know, she was very narcissistic. And I was always wanting to help people and make a difference in the world. And I didn't care what people thought. And there's a quote that somebody in our stake who had seminars, and it was would rather look good or be good. And my mother was a good person, but she spent her whole life trying to impress other people. And it so much mattered what other people thought. And she tried so hard to keep up. I called it with the Schwartzes, because not the Joneses, because the Jones is not a Jewish last name.
This is very true.
And so I have in my book, Keeping Up with the Schwartzes. But, and she'd worry about how I looked and what people would think. And I'm like, who cares? And I tell her, you're headed into geezerhood with you and your friends. Why do you care what people think? It doesn't really matter. And and my friends, I had friends that really helped me in college. And when I was senior in high school, and these were my brother's friends, girlfriends that were in college, and they became my friends. And they taught me something. They said, people that want to elevate themselves, that are actually not happy people or insecure, do it by belittling others. And they make fun of those that they feel are less, so that they can feel confident and think they're better. But the thing is, it's not lasting. So they have to do it over and over again. So there's things in my book that really are self-help, and that you can look and analyze a situation you're in and say, oh, well, then I'm going to look at this with a different perspective or a different view.
It's interesting how maybe times have changed, the technology has changed, but people really haven't. The bullying online and the way that the world is, we're still human beings and we're still going through those things. So exactly right. I mean, people are still bullying for the same reasons, right?
Right, right.
How we get through that.
And it will help somebody that's in that situation that I was to reevaluate things. And I even talked about 2 teachers in high school that were very rude to me and very hurtful. And I talk about that experience and what I learned from it.
Something for everyone. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Where do you write up to in your book? I know you've lived for quite a while here at you've had a beautiful life with lots of grandchildren and everything. What point do you stop your book and are you working on something more?
Okay. So I stopped the book. I went to BYU, and that was miraculous too. And all of that, it's just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. I look at my life and I'm in awe. But I went to BYU and I joined the church. In order to join the church, my mother said, if you go to a Jewish psychiatrist and he tells you you're normal, then you can be baptized. And I'm like, oh, yeah, right. Like, I'm going to go to a Jewish psychiatrist and he's going to tell me I'm normal. But I get this woman and there's only men's name on the door. She's endearing and loving and sweet. And she said, why are you here, sweetie? And I told her about my conversion story that happened in Hawaii. And then she paused and she said, sweetie, I want to tell you that I'm a Christian and I believe in Jesus Christ. Tell me more of your miracle summer. And so
Oh,
I wonder if she was an angel. I really do.
uh-huh.
And so I told her the rest of my summer and she said, there's 4 things I want you to do. And this is not like what a psychiatrist would talk and say. She
Uh-huh.
said, I want you to quit college. I'm like, I paid for college. Said, I want you to quit college, quit this sorority, get a full-time job and move out. And I want you to do it in 2 weeks.
Oh
And
my
I
goodness.
left her office crying and everything fell into place. Since I did one thing after another, miracles fell into place. It was amazing. Yeah, it's just incredible.
So you ended up at BYU then.
So I moved out and I lived with Chris, my roommate Chris. I found this was a miracle. I went to church, snuck out, and I my parents didn't know. So I sat with the missionaries and I was going to run back home right after. And this girl comes up to me from my high school. I did not know her. She
Uh-huh.
just recognized my face and she said, why are you here? And I said, I'm looking into your church. And then she said, you want to go to an institute dance with me? She was a total stranger. So I said, okay. And she picked me up and I walked into the dance and I felt like a fish out of water.
Oh,
But I walked clear across the room and I felt prompted to do that. And I stood in front of this girl and I waited till she was done talking to several guys. And then when she was done, I noticed she had daisy shoes on. They had plastic daisies. And I said, I love your shoes. Daisies are my favorite flower. And then I looked at her and it was my voice, but not my words. I said, you need a roommate, don't you? And she looked at me and she said, you know, my roommate moved out and I was going to have a friend move in, but I had a prayer last night that someone needed me and it was you. And I just was like shocked. And so I moved in with Chris and miracle of miracles, she was a Jewish convert too.
oh my heavens.
I know.
The Lord has just, he is so in the details and it just always amazes me if we look and we recognize it, how often he is just putting everything together for us.
He does.
And oh my goodness, that's so incredible.
So 6 months later, after I lived with Chris for 6 months and everything was on my job, everything was great. My bishop calls me and he says, your husband's waiting for you at BYU. And I said, I just quit school. And where I lived, I changed my whole life for this church and you're asking me to change it again? And so I didn't. because I was scared and everything was good. And then I get this call, and I didn't have a phone. And my roommate Chris answered it, and they asked for me. And they said, "This is BYU admissions." And Chris was like, "What?" So she hands me the phone, and they said, "This is BYU admissions office. We have not received your application yet, and you are supposed to be here." And Chris said, "I went to BYU. They never call. You've got
No.
to."
Oh my heavens.
I know. I'm telling you that this book, I had to write it because there are miracles in my life. And if but I put myself, like I said, in complete submission and changed my whole life. And I was willing to do that because I knew the gospel was true. So I went to BYU, and I lived with one of my roommates in Hawaii, lived with a Mormon family, and she got married. And then so I moved in. So I lived with this Mormon family, and he was dean of engineering and physical sciences, and his wife. And so I learned how, by watching them, a functional family should be. And I met my husband at BYU. And so the bishop came in and said, "Your husband's waiting." And I'm like, "How am I going to know in a giant university who that is?" And so the Mormon family I lived with said that she would meet every guy I dated and tell me yes or no. And so she'd go like this every time I went home. And then when Bobby came, she went, "Ah." We got married, and we were really happy and had 6 kids together and a wonderful life. And he passed. And now I'm married to a great guy named Dennis from Idaho.
Beautiful. Where in all that did you write your whole story up till now then in your book?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
I stopped it when I met my husband and we got married, and that's it.
Okay. So now you got the rest of your life story to write
Well,
down.
I want to write a book called A Best Friend Mommy.
Oh,
So yeah, I have quotable quotes that I said to my kids and what I did and just what I didn't have, and just kind of put it out there.
I think everyone could use that best friend mom for sure.
So
So we could all use.
but right now I'm trying to promote this book
Yep.
and finish the manuscript so I can resubmit it. And my current new husband, we're going on a mission in February.
You're going on a mission in February. Wow, where are you guys gonna go?
Well, he served in the military for 20 years in the Air Force.
Oh
So
wow.
he wants to go to a military mission on a
Huh?
base. And our first choice is Hawaii, choice is South Carolina, and our third choice is Florida.
Well, there you go. And I can't wait. Have you guys put in your papers and you're just
Yeah.
waiting?
And we
Oh,
meet
that's
with the bishop on this Sunday.
oh wow. That's so it's exciting. More news coming our way.
Yeah. Yes.
That's so incredible. And my parents met at BYU as well. My mom coming from California as it's not really a convert because she'd been not born into the church, but they were active and she converted as a teenager. And so she came to BYU, the only member in her family and everything. And she was dating someone else. My dad had just got home off his mission and how they just met. I mean, that your story sounds very familiar to like
It's
things
cool.
happen, right?
That's
And
super.
yeah, and they've now, my dad had served in Brazil. And so my parents now have served 2 other missions in Brazil. They got sent home early into their second one there from COVID. But then they served another one in Colorado. But oh my goodness, I loved seeing my parents be able to serve together and how I watched them growing up and I watched them with all of us, but to see them be able to become partners that way has just been so wonderful. So I am so happy for you to be able to have that
Thank you.
experience. You've already been doing a great mission, though. It looks like your whole
Thank
life's been
you.
missionary work. in all of this. As we get ready here to close up, where we can find your book on Amazon, but don't get it for 72 hours, right?
Right.
Where else can we follow you? Are you on Instagram, Facebook? You have a web page? Where's
I'm on Facebook, Barbie Van Cott. I don't have Instagram. You can read my articles in the Beehive magazine, and it's called the Arizona Beehive magazine. My article in the Ensign magazine is in the April 2018 edition. And it is on the sacrament. That's another miracle, is I felt prompted, even though I was in the middle of writing this book, to write this article about the sacrament. And we lived in Vermont for 4 years.
Mhm,
And it was called a white hand-tatted tablecloth.
mhm.
And that was given to us at our wedding by somebody in Orem. And when my husband was called as branch president shortly after he graduated from BYU in Vermont, and we got this beautiful hand-tatted tablecloth from somebody in his ward in Orem, and it takes forever to make it.
Oh yeah.
And it was exquisite. And my husband took it out when we were there. They had an old tattered sheet and he took it out of the drawer, and I knew what he was asking. He was asking if we could use that for the sacrament table. And so we did. And when we moved back 4 years later, we didn't feel like we could take it back because it wasn't ours anymore. And so that's the article is about the white hand tablet and how we gave that and what it meant and stuff like that. And when I called the ensign, they said we have a 2.5 year backlog, and the chances of it getting published are very slim. And then 4 months later it was in the magazine.
It was meant to be there, meant to be shared.
Now, I did submit my book to Deseret Book, and they replied saying, we read the whole manuscript. It's an amazing story, but we don't take memoirs. I hope you have the opportunity to publish it, is what they said. But it is real. And so maybe not, I mean, like, for instance, one of my teachers, my PE teacher, I tried out for drill team in high school so I could become popular.
Mm-hmm.
And it took all the courage in the world for me to do this. Let me
Oh,
tell
I'm
you,
sure. Yeah.
that's me being a total geekwad. So I have kind of what they call sway back. It doesn't hurt my back or anything. It's just the way I'm shaped or whatever. And so I have this in my book. Like, I'm jumping around and I'm walking in a circle with all these other students, and they go, Lavick. And I thought, oh, they chose me. And she said, get out of line. They'll be able to see your big butt from the bleachers.
Oh my goodness.
But that's in my book because it's real.
Yeah.
And so I wanted them to see that high school was painful for me, not only from the kids,
Mhm.
but from some of the teachers. Now they'd get in big trouble.
Oh
But
yeah.
in the 70s,
Not so much.
anything, yeah,
Yeah. Anything could go back then, that's for sure. I mean, my mother talks about, well, some of the people, I don't know if no, it wasn't my mother, it was someone else. Like it was one of my teachers I knew that he went to a Catholic school and they used the rulers and
yeah.
and paddling and all of that stuff. So yeah, absolutely. Well, I am so excited for your book and your story and for your mission and
Thank you.
your adventures and all of this, and wish you the best of luck on this. Is there any last message that you feel that we need to hear and that needs to be shared to our audience today before we?
Yes. If you think that you're not loved, cared about, and watched over, both here and on the other side of the veil. You are for sure on the other side of the veil. There are people rooting for you. I have friends that are struggling, and I put their name on the temple prayer roll. And I call them and ask how they're doing, and I listen. Be the person, if you're struggling, to go to the temple, to put your name on the prayer roll, to listen to others, to serve, to give, to love, to sacrifice. The more you do that, the closer you'll be to the Lord. And when you serve his children, blessings come.
Thank you for your beautiful life, your
Thank
beautiful
you.
book, and your beautiful message with us here today. Everyone go check out her book on Amazon. Wait 72 hours to buy it though, so you can get the updated version. And
Like on Monday.
yeah, let's go Monday next week. Yeah, let's do that and just flood her Amazon orders. That would be so wonderful. And we look forward to your continuing story and your continuing miracles. Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Barbie. We love
Thank
you
you.
and
Love
appreciate you.
you. Thank
Okay.
you. Take
We'll talk
care.
to you guys later, everyone. Next time on Roundy's Rants, Raves, and Reviews. Bye.
Bye.